Hey, I'm Neil, and this is A Cup of Hope, the show where I drink a cup of coffee and talk to people about some of the messy and difficult areas of life, areas where all of us need some more hope. Let's do it. Hey guys, what's your favorite movie about love? Is it something like When Harry Met Sally, The Notebook, Casablanca, a classic, The Titanic, Jack, Pretty Woman, something a little more edgy like that? A lot of people like the movie Jerry Maguire. And the classic line, "You complete me." It's ridiculous. Let's be honest. No person could ever handle the pressure of trying to complete someone else who is incomplete. But I think a lot of people come into marriage thinking that's what's going to happen. This person is the missing element in my life. To be sure, marriage can feel like that sometimes when things are just really clicking and things are awesome. And then there are times that it can feel like the exact opposite. This person doesn't complete me. They're actually limiting me and they're taking away from me. Anyway, I think movies are fun to watch, but they are not obviously reality. Well, if you've been married for more than 5 seconds, you know that love and marriage is quite a bit different. Tonight, we're going to talk about a cup of hope for marriage. And I've invited some good friends, Jay and Sharon Guptill, some veterans of marriage, we'll say, to talk with us about their own marriage and just some things that have helped them navigate the differences over the years and emphasize the strengths. So anyway, here they are. Grab your cup of coffee or your cup of whatever, and let's go. Jay and Sharon Guptill, thank you for joining me tonight for A Cup of Hope. Jay and Sharon have been friends of mine and my family, well, probably longer than I've been alive, actually. So there's never been a time that I don't remember knowing you, especially Sharon, but probably you too, Jay. So would you guys just tell a little bit about yourselves so people who are watching and listening tonight can get an idea? Who are these amazingly wonderful, beautiful looking people that we're looking at here tonight?
Well, thank you for the invite. We're glad to be able to share and offer from our perspective of life and marriage and family as much as this will help anyone. I was born in Ontario, but raised in St. Andrews, New Brunswick, and went through school there and then went off to Bethany Bible College in 1981. And Sharon, as a preacher's kid, served and lived in different places, including Egypt. And then she came to Bethany in 1981. So we were at school together for 4 years, the same 4 years. And then in our final year, started dating and got married out of school and started into ministry. And we've been doing ministry since 1985. It seems like it was just yesterday, but that's like 35 years ago. Wow. And so along the way, 5 wonderful sons, and now 3 daughter-in-laws and 3 grandchildren.
Wow.
Well, that's just kind of some stuff. And another one on the way. That's right. So that's exciting. So
crazy.
Share some more about who we are as well. So
yeah, well, we our interests have been different over the years. Like I was more of a musician. Jay was an athlete. So we kind of bring a mixed batch of interests into our marriage too. Yeah. We've lived we've lived both sides of the border. We've lived in the US as well. And in fact, some of our kids are citizens of the United States and they are there. So some of our kids, we have 2 children here in the bubble, in the Atlantic bubble. And then we have the rest of our kids are on the US side. So I'm not sure when we're ever going to see them again.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Crazy. 35 years you guys have been doing ministry. You've been married 35 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That does not seem possible.
Yeah.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
so let's just say that 35 years of being together and being still together and being in love, you have got to have stories to tell of some of the great times and some of the tough times too, probably. Nobody lives together and is married that long without weathering some storms, I'm sure. So we'll hear about that stuff tonight. We're going to talk, everybody who's watching, we're going to talk about hope for marriage. Wouldn't you guys say that the last, what has it been now, 7 months, has just put a whole new level of strain on marriages that it was there before, but it's just kind of ratcheted things up even more?
Yeah, for sure. There's no space, and every marriage has some people need more space than others, and especially when we were all locked down, couldn't go anywhere, just that being just inside your home all the time, not being able to, kind of suffocating, and can be really suffocating, and then to find the normal in that, because it isn't normal to begin with. And then to find a way of somehow making rules and more rules, and then lockdowns. And then if you add kids to that, which is where our children are not home, but just that whole thing of just I feel like I'm suffocating within the place where it's supposed to be a place called a marriage and love relationship. It's just suffocating. So
Yeah.
And I know, like, everybody's different based on their family history, their family's life cycle. We're empty nesters, so that's different than, say, a family if they're just young children. Like, we had staff who basically their lives completely turned upside down because now two adults who were working not at home now are working from home. And they have their kids who went to daycare who are now at home and are thinking, oh, mommy and daddy should just play with me anytime I want. And so as adults, they had to sort out how are they going to navigate the care of the children and their workload and so on. So their situation was much different than ours. Yeah. So I think for every marriage, you have to identify, what are we facing? What has changed? How do we work through this and try our best not to attack one another, but look at something outside that's been kind of attacking us or trying to, get at us. So now we have to work together to not let this attacker, this big change, control us and dictate how we're going to do life. We still have to make decisions. So in our situation, although we don't have children at home, we did have our youngest, Matt, who was doing internship in Calgary, who came home just before everything closed down. So now our son has moved back. He's trying to adjust to life from, I was doing an internship, I'm in my final semester of school, I'm trying to figure out where I'm headed. Sharon's mom had come to visit, and she's from Quebec, now living in Ontario, but at that time, she was like coming for a visit, and then she's here in a few days. All of a sudden, her return flight gets canceled. And so she ends up being with us for 3 months, which was wonderful. We were all navigating different realities in the midst of COVID. So our situation was ours. It won't be somebody else's, but everybody had to try to find a way. So yeah, it did change a lot. COVID impacts us.
Man, I wonder how many guys would say, my mother-in-law came to live with us for 3 months and it was great.
It was. It was a treat.
If you have not seen, if you're not friends with Jay and Sharon, they were posting Sharon's mom doing cooking shows. Some of her favorite recipes.
Cooking with Grandma.
Cooking with Grandma.
And what was funny, we would meet people and they would ask us about those, and they would meet my mom, but they'd say, I'm really sorry, but I don't know your name. I only know you by Grandma.
Yeah, That's fantastic. Yeah, they were awesome. And I of course was a kid growing up at Zion Hill Camp with your parents, Sharon, and your mom being the cook year after year, and it was like a step back in time for me. Even some of the recipes, I'm like, yep, remember that one from Wednesday of youth camp or whatever, you know. So, would you, 35 years you guys have been together, would you tell us, like, what are some of the greatest moments that you've shared together?
Yeah, I'll start with we really worked hard, and I would say because I was for the most part on staff or the one working in a church. Sharon, was very busy and serving alongside, but wasn't necessarily an employee. That's different now. She is on staff, and so that's changed. But in those early years, I just really felt that I should take my day off every week, and we should take our vacations every year, and that we should try our best to stay connected with our family because we were in the U.S. a number of years. So, we tried our best to make sure we stuck with that because we felt that was good for the long haul of our marriage and family and ministry. In the same way, there were times that Sharon and I would call on one of the parents and say, hey, we would like to go away for a week, and would you come and stay with the kids? And so there were times that we did that. I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 times that we were able to get away for either a week or a weekend. And those were fun times for us because it was like, okay, this is an opportunity for us to enjoy being together and having fun doing it. So that would be something that I found to be a really good thing for us.
Yeah.
Raising 5 boys would be like a continual full court press, right? So to be able to unplug from that for a few days.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think our whole family likes to travel. And so some of our greatest memories are like trips we took together. And a lot of times it was coming home, but just, being in the van together and traveling and just having fun wherever we went. So I think, and then when Jay and I did get a chance to go to just by ourselves, that was always a real treat because when you got 5 kids, being able to, it takes you a day to kind of actually get away. But then once you're away, it's just really fun to just be like it was before you had kids, which is not bad at all. And it's good now too. Like,
Yeah.
Like different now.
Yeah.
Cool. So you're saying some of your greatest memories have been the times you've been able to get away from your kids?
Well,
No.
actually,
Just messing with you. You guys have great kids.
one of the best trips we've ever taken was as a family when Focus on the Family in Colorado Springs, Colorado, put on an event called a Clergy Family Getaway. And it was, to me, one of the most memorable, positive, encouraging trips we've ever done as a family. And Focus on the Family, I'm not sure if they still do that, but they did it for a couple of times. And
Somebody gave a grant.
yeah,
So just treat pastors and their families.
and it was a treat.
Was awesome.
It was probably
Cool.
one of our best trips ever as a family. After that, the next best trip was one time we did a family cruise.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can put 5 boys on a cruise ship where there's unlimited food, they have died and gone to heaven, right? So, so that was a fun experience for us too. So,
That's hilarious.
Obviously we can't not be with our children. It was nice to do that alone. Then it was nice to have some special family memories that were fun, things we talk about. We still refer to it, and it even comes up in a conversation like this. So
Yeah. As I think about it, it's probably cheaper to feed 5 boys by going on a cruise than it is to feed them out of your own fridge at home.
yeah, that's true.
If you could just live in one of the port cities, you'd be all set. Cool. So some of the good times. What would you say, and would you be willing to share what some of the difficult times have been like for you guys, and a little bit about what went on, what struggles you faced together, and how you have found your way through them.
Well, I would say one of the things, and this kind of sets up what we're talking about, and that is like we come from although we come from incredible families, but we come from different kinds of families, right? Like the way my parents functioned and the way Jay's parents functioned were very different. So we grew up under different, rules kind of thing, like, so for instance, my parents loved to do everything together. Like they went together, every place, did everything together. So that was my role model. Jay's parents did a lot of things by themselves, and they they liked it that way. There's nothing wrong with either one.
Yep.
I just think when you bring those two things to a marriage, then you have to find how you're going to function together. And so I think that has been probably one of the things that we've kind of had to navigate through, and that I'm expecting one thing and he's expecting another. And then there's what we need to have an understanding of as we kind of bring our marriage and as we grow. And I think over the years, that's probably been the thing that kind of reoccurs, coming up about just how to navigate expectations.
Mm-hmm.
They come from an upbringing, or, and expectations can come from lots of places, and with expectations come rules. And so when he knows he broke a rule because it upsets me, that's when you find out you have rules, because sometimes you don't know you have those rules, but you find out when you realize, hey, you stepped on my toes, but he didn't know that, right? Because he didn't have that rule.
Yeah.
So
I think early in our marriage, when we both come from these backgrounds and we bring our personalities, there was that part of Sharon would say, well, don't you want to spend time with me? And it equated to, you don't really love me because you don't want to spend time with me. And I would come from the perspective of, don't you want to give me some space? And if you loved me, you'd let me do some of my own things.
Yeah.
So when we weren't aware of that, we were constantly kind of in our, insecurities and our own history and personality and all that stuff. Why are we kind of not in sync here? Why are we stepping on each other's toes?
Mm-hmm.
Why do we, so those are things, and that still exists to this day. It just doesn't exist to the same intensity as it did.
Right.
There can be those expectations that we have that create for us then the hurt, or the rule got broken, and it's like, well, I didn't even know there was a rule, but all of a sudden, there was, because something just happened, and now we have to talk it through to figure out, why did we just have that disagreement? Why did we just have that kind of hiccup? Why did that thing just happen when we were heading off to do something that was going to be fun?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it's like, well, that's been kind of a bummer. So it's taken, that's a big thing. For sure.
Why are we still talking about this same thing that we talked about for 35 years now?
Yeah, right.
That a lot of times seems to come back. I heard a saying that stuff like this, it's not a problem to be solved, it's a tension to be lived.
Mm-hmm.
If you've heard the saying before, but that just made so much sense for me when I think about Heidi and I and some of the things that we've just deferred on and just been, bump up against it every so often. It's like, okay, we're dealing with this again. And I thought we had a conversation, therefore it was solved. And I thought we had 10 conversations about that, and it's still not solved. And it apparently is not going to be.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We also had a season of life, it's about 20 years ago now, that was a pretty tough season in ministry. And, we had to face a situation that was quite challenging in a church that we served in. And so, we both were dealing with our own emotions and hurts over what had taken place in the church. But then we also had to try to find a way to work through that. I was kind of helping to lead through a crisis. But then after that crisis started to settle, then where I had not really dealt with things, now I was dealing with things, and I wasn't dealing with them well. And so there were times that, Sharon was trying to serve me, love me, help me. And I felt like maybe she was kind of invading, and taking over, but I wasn't healthy, right? And so, that created a point where we had to really just stick with it, kind of stay in the grind. We were getting good counseling. We were going to counselors and talking through things. That was a season that was a challenging time for us. And even previous to that, Sharon had gone through a bit of a journey in about maybe 5-7 years earlier that, again, we had to walk through that and try to work with and help each other and support each other. So there are times like that as well in our marriage history that those have been some tough seasons and difficult times that were, back in our early years of marriage, and those, maybe that 10 to 15 to 20 a year range that taught us a lot. And so those are in our journey. They're in our history. They're kind of in the past, but they certainly can be something that can stir up even emotions and feelings of back then too, if we let it, if we allow that.
The one thing I would say about when you endure, like for instance, after we get through COVID, we'll have stories of this here too. But when you have situations in your marriage where you have like had to go through difficult times and you have endured through them and learned from them, like you have that now in your life to help you for the next, because other things will come down the pipe, right? So for instance, like Jay mentioned, like I came through a 3-year period that I was quite sick, and I had to, look at some counseling and deal with some things. And so one of the good things that has come out of that is emotionally, like I have kind of a barometer. I know where if I start going down those roads, like I have systems that I go, okay, like you're not heading in the right direction here. Like you're going to need a little bit of help. So I have that. I wouldn't have that, and I didn't have it at that time, but I have that now. And then just things like, even with COVID, reminding us of, okay, there have been other stresses in our life, and how did we get through those? Because those are actually tools in our toolbox to help us during this time. And it doesn't necessarily make this time easy, but we do have some things that we've gone through that have been helpful in the process of being, in this time because of things that have happened in our past too. So, and I think everybody has those things, if we are able to.
For sure. Why are we so, why do we tend so much to resist going out and finding the tools though? Like counseling, like maybe leaning on some friends and opening up about what's going on. I don't know, like why don't you think most of us resist that until like we either break or we give up? Like don't you find so many people do that? Why is that?
Yeah. Well, I think
were you guys quick to reach out, or did that take getting to the breaking point to reach out?
Well, in some of those situations, they happen quickly, or a crisis happened. So, it was like, okay, you have to in order to survive. But I do think we as people, generally speaking, we will tend to put up with things and kind of endure things and probably live in an unhealthy place beyond where we should have. And I think there's any number of reasons for that. I think one of those that we all have to deal with in some ways is a sense of shame or embarrassment or feeling of I'm less than if I go for help. And of course, that's the farthest thing from the truth. However, we can somehow be convinced of that, is it good for me to be seen with a counselor? Is it good for people to know that I'm getting counsel or I'm on medication? All those things that can, for some people, be a point of shame or embarrassment or failure. Hopefully people can see that, oh my goodness, like if I guess announce it everywhere you go. I've been to a counselor, I'm on medication. You don't make that your front sentence, or but when you get to talk with people and you go, wow, okay, it's good to know. It's encouraging to know that people have sought help from others, and that should become more of a natural thing for us. But if I struggle with that, if I know somebody else went ahead and did that, then why wouldn't I also want to do that? So
yeah.
I also think it's harder for people for instance, in ministry, who are always helping other people. Sometimes it's hard for us to take the help because we feel like we're always supposed to be giving it, so there's a part for us that we have to, and I mean, quite honestly, that's probably pride, but
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I relate to what you're both saying. Like I went through a season, and kind of, I'm in a season right now, coming back from stress leave and some, I guess I would refer to it as burnout, just from the overwhelm of being in a helping profession for decades.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the feeling of, after talking to my doctor, because it was a phone conversation, I remember the feeling of having to walk into the doctor's office to get the doctor's note when she recommended I be off work. And I know the girl behind the counter, and our families are, acquaintances, and they live in our neighborhood. And I thought, I don't know if she knows what's in this envelope, but she's probably done this dozens of times. She, how does this reflect on me? Does she think, oh, he must be really, like he's losing it, or, what's going on in their marriage, or whatever, and we feel, I remember that feeling of like, okay, I've been exposed, and now someone knows something about me. And I didn't think I was going to be one of those people, that needed to do this. And, I think you said, Jay, like we quickly realize when we do reach out and we start getting help, we're like, oh, why did I resist this? And God starts to actually redeem it so quickly, and you can encourage other people that are feeling that same way or struggling with some of the same things. So, but it's a strange thing that we go through trying to get there.
and I would say the challenge can be, which if anybody's listening today, like if you go for help and you begin to find some improvement, don't stop just because you start to feel a little bit better.
Right.
It's like taking antibiotic. You go, the doctor or the prescription usually says take it to its full completion, but you might start feeling better after 3 or 4 or 5 days.
Right.
Like keep taking it, until this thing is really in a good place. So I think the same would be true when it comes to the journey of getting support and help. Is don't just go until you start to feel a little bit better. Take it through to its full completion and be okay with that, right? So that would be an encouragement for anybody who might be listening. Good
stuff. Where have been some of you mentioned doing everything together versus doing everything or a lot of things independently. Where have been some of your biggest differences and stress points over the years? I mean, we hear, of course, the classic stories of couples fighting over money, and sex, and on down the list, kids, all that kind of stuff. What have been the particularly big and ongoing stress points for you guys over the years?
Yeah, I would say like the money thing has not been a big thing, although it was when we first got married, but we had to learn. We had to learn like how we were going to manage and kind of function. So this would be a kind of a funny story for anybody listening. Maybe it's happened to you. I started doing the books, so to speak, our home finances when we were first married. But we didn't create a clear budget, but I kind of knew how things were. And so Sharon would come and ask, okay, I thought, can I go and spend this? And I might go, well, I don't think that we have the budget. And so I was kind of like the one saying no. And she goes, okay, she says, I want to do the books. I want to do the budget. She says, I feel like every time I come and ask, I feel like I'm talking to my parent. My parent says, no, you can't have money.
Right.
So she took the books. Well, it wasn't very long. She was very frustrated doing the books, right?
Well, I was frustrated, but I was overwhelmed, overwhelmed because I'm like, oh, gracious, how are we going to get milk this week? Like, just like, because things are tight, right? I'm thinking, I don't want this stress. So it actually helped because I did that, I've never really wanted to do it. I'm like, I don't want that stress in my life. And he carries it way better than I do. And he does the finances.
So she comes back
better.
and she's like, here, take this checkbook, take this stuff. So what we learned out of that was we have to create a budget. We have to do it together, be on the same page when it's prepared. And this was our big statement that we've used a lot. Let the budget be the bad guy.
Yep.
So neither one of us are overriding the other. Mm-hmm. It's the budget that we prepared that becomes the bad guy, saying you can or cannot spend, or you cannot or cannot do certain things. So, but that was early. And once we got that sorted out, that might have been even in the first 3 years of marriage. Like, that really has not been a concern in any way for us.
I think one of the things that helped in that process, though, is we actually did the envelope system where, everything had an envelope. So if you went to the envelope and there was no money, then don't be spending money, But I often, stole from Peter to pay Paul or whatever, put stuff back. But then that was one of the things that helped us, though, is because in that process, we began to understand, I had money to spend.
Right.
Because the envelope said I did.
Yeah.
So if I have money to spend, then I can spend it. But if it's not there, then don't spend it.
Yeah.
So that was really helpful, because sometimes you're like, I always had that feeling, well, I can't spend money. There is no money. It's like, well, there is money, but you don't know where it is. So I think the envelope was really helpful in that process.
Yeah, that visual system helped kind of free you from I got to go and ask Jay.
Exactly.
And feel like a kid, right? Like it takes away from the equality that you've entered into in marriage, and changes the relationship to this is the person in power, right? And
because if he wanted to go to the store, he had to look in the envelope and see if there was money for whatever he wanted.
Yeah. People have to find their way and stuff like that.
I would say that probably it might be, instead of a certain topic of marriage, it might be that classic, what are our expectations? So what did I come into the marriage thinking how it was going to function or go, and the same thing for her. So our expectations around money, for example, were quite similar. We're not big spenders. We like to save. We don't want to be in debt. So some of those things were, there was alignment fairly quickly. But there could be other areas of expectations that we go, okay, this is where there has been more friction or tension or kind of reoccurring challenges, right? So that would be kind of what I would say is kind of the driving force with it. So some of that, as we refer to how we were going to spend time, how we were going to do certain things with our schedule, or that was definitely something that we've had to manage the expectations there. I would say in our sex life, that has been true. Differing expectations and ways that has, we've had different conversations, and sometimes the same conversation repeated because of expectations in our sexual life. The parenting thing was overall fairly good, but again, when one of us is parenting one way and the other one is like, well, that's not the way you should parent, we had to work through some of those things, especially in the early years. Mm-hmm.
And I think some of that comes from, again, what you came out of, because I was raised in a family of girls. So the restrictions on life and just the way you did life was very different. And then we're raising 5 boys, which, like I've never, the only boy in my family was my father, like I wasn't trying to raise him. So like just like Jay does have a brother, so even the way you're raised and the way you function and the parenting with that, like there came some like I was more fearful for some of the things that maybe the boys wanted to do, whereas Jay was like, well, they're boys, like that's what they do. I'm like, yeah, well, they could kill themselves in the process.
You want to jump off that bridge? And I just go, I'll go with you. And then here we go, Jay, you can't do that, right? So I would say like this would be, if I can be raw and real, one of the big things that I had to learn and discover is the way I treated Sharon in front of the boys. If I agreed with the boys on something because I felt like that was a boy thing, but then if it disregarded and disrespected Sharon, I was actually teaming up with the boys and we were kind of all against Sharon. I had to learn how to make some changes there. And that meant that she and I had to do a whole lot more talking beforehand, or calling the audible in the middle of the play to say, hold it.
Step aside.
This is not fair to Sharon. This is not respecting her. And what am I actually doing? I'm actually teaching my boys to disrespect women and not give them the regard that they need. So that was a big thing for me that I had to come to grips with, to look at, to work on, and so changes started to happen. But it was like I didn't get that at first, and I really had to grow up in that area of my life.
Sharon, did you have to point that out to him, or Jay, did you come to that on your own? I asked that seriously. Like that's a big discovery.
Yeah. I think we kind of wrestled probably towards it. Like I'm feeling like this, and I always feel like I'm the bad guy in everything because I don't necessarily see eye to eye on some of these things.
Yep.
So I think and the other thing that we learned very early, because kids are smart and they, divide and conquer. Well, if I don't get what I want from mom, then I'll go to dad, or vice versa. And so then they had to understand very quickly that doesn't work at our house. So that whole thing, because they needed to see that we're together on these things. So then you have to learn how to be together on those things. And so, sometimes it's not about like, maybe I disagree with, but I'm going to go with it because, okay, we have to come with a united front, not be dividing the kids in the process of us trying to find out what we agree or disagree on. So I think it was a process and some struggle there as we kind of came to those things, and at each situation maybe in and of itself.
And I think with that, it was like an awareness thing for me, because I was pretty quick to agree with any crazy idea the boys might come up with, and then maybe quite a bit later go, yeah, probably that wasn't a good idea. Sharon brought the balance in that to say, Jay, are you sure? Like, I don't know. And that check kind of made me have to recheck my initial, yeah, go for it, to say, yeah, actually, guys, we need to rethink this. We need to revisit whatever. And I can't give you a specific example, but just that overall theme of trusting and allowing and inviting and being open to her input.
Why do you think people give up on marriage?
Well, that's a good question. Certainly, I don't think anybody gets married thinking that the marriage is going to come to an end, or they're planning on it. I hope we get in 2 good years. I don't think people approach marriage that way. I think sometimes it can be people, they just keep letting something go, and when you let it go and you don't address it, and you don't try to find a resolution, it just goes into a big kind of vat of unresolved things that feel like there's not much hope.
Mm.
So it's almost like, where do we start? Like, what's the first thing? I don't even care. It's like, it just seems too insurmountable. So that can be really challenging. And that's true about anything in life. If we don't deal with and process things, it just can turn into something way bigger than what it really needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
It's real in the moment because, yeah, we haven't dealt with a whole lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So I think it's a matter of try to keep short accounts,
Mm-hmm.
try to get things resolved as quickly as possible, keep talking through things, go for the help and the support, invite other people in. We remember a couple that were about 10 years ahead of us in marriage and family life. And we just said, hey guys, would it be okay if we just spent time together, hung out, asked questions, just kind of learned, and those were some rich conversations that we had in that time, in that season of life, because it was important to where we were and how we could learn from them. So I guess it's just a matter of trying not to let things go so far that it just feels like it's now too big to be able to resolve. Right?
You guys specifically went to a couple and said, can we learn from you about how to do this marriage and raising kids stuff better? Like, you actually just asked them and they were like, sure.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah. It wasn't like we had like, here are the 5 topics and here are all the questions.
No.
It's kind of like that interesting statement of, we respect you, we can learn from you, we'd like to spend time with you, versus, can we hang out and just kind of, gain some new things? And I don't know, it just kind of was like, it evolved and it was important to us, and we found it very helpful.
I would say also that sometimes one of the things I think that happens, especially with our culture, is that divorce is an option, and so if you go into your marriage thinking, well, divorce is always an option if it doesn't work out, it's probably not going to help you with your fighting or your disagreements and your struggles. So
lots of places to take that option along the way, if it's an option, right?
Yeah, I remember hearing this quote by Billy Graham's wife and Ruth Graham. And somebody said, did you ever think of divorce? She goes, divorce, no. Murder, yes, but divorce, no.
Nice.
But just having that in your vocabulary, like that's an option, I think is really not a safe way to live in your marriage, because then you have an out that's not working through things, rather than, I think we need to go for help, or I think so that we're not thinking about, well, what will a divorce cost? And I realize there are situations that, that a divorce is the, maybe the best option, but not in most cases. I think it's kind of, well, how can we work through these things, even if there's a lot of things that we have been struggling with?
Yeah.
And I would say for both of us, because we have believed that there is always hope. God is always in the process of redeeming and restoring and reconciling things. We live with that kind of DNA within us. We're obviously very blessed, and I know this is not true for everybody. We're very blessed with having both sets of parents have long-term marriages and much family members doing the same. So I know that we're very blessed that way. And I know there are others that's not the case. They've come from a lot of brokenness, a lot of dysfunction, a lot of relational failure and hurt. All I can say is, like, as God has the ability to redeem a soul that maybe has not been attuned to him, and that soul can be made new, there is always a new day possibility for any relationship if they're willing to go there. We've seen it happen many times, and we've seen the other side too. People that have said, no, I can't do this. I don't have the strength. I can't go there. But if you're at that point, it's like, know there is a God, and know there are ways that a renewal and a refreshing can come.
Yeah.
It's not going to take work.
Yeah.
But the possibility is there.
Right. Yeah. God's, as Dallas Willard likes to say, God's grace is opposed to earning, but it's not opposed to effort.
Yeah.
If we're willing to do that, he in his grace seems to just empower our efforts in his ways when we're committed to his ways. So yeah, I was going to ask you what difference does Jesus make in a marriage, but I think that says it so well. He's always redeeming, right? And we don't really have to work hard to redeem good things and easy things. It's the bad stuff and the messy stuff and the broken things that need to be redeemed, right? So,
and part of that redemption is the forgiving part, which is always in play in any relationship and is in our marriage relationship. So
yeah.
Even this week, for Sharon and I, we had something that we had to come to a point where we said, I'm sorry, I missed it. And that's not uncommon.
Who's first to apologize? I want to know.
Oh boy.
Who's quickest?
Usually you.
I'd say probably me. Yeah.
Isn't it so funny though?
Mm-hmm.
It is interesting.
Yeah.
For us, what's been true, and that would be, we knew this was in our schedule to have this conversation with you and to talk about marriage. And over our years of living and serving in ministry, whenever we have been asked to do something around marriage or family, whether it's a retreat or a talk like this or something, the evil one is always trying to distract us.
Mm-hmm.
And we have seen that so many times that all of a sudden something is stirring that's getting us off track.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, there it is again. How about that? He's pretty consistent, and but he's not getting the victory. So, but it is part of the reality. That's again that forgiving, having Jesus as the core of our lives, so that we can live out of that in our marriage. It is an ongoing journey. We know we're not perfect. We're continuing day by day, and we just have to keep trusting that God will help us. Right?
Yeah. Beautiful. Sharon.
Yes.
What is one thing you would say tonight to wives that they need to know about their husbands?
Well, I would say the one thing I would say is that we need to, as wives, we need to really respect our husbands. We may not necessarily agree, but they need respect. And when our husbands are not respected, then it just affects just their whole life, and then it's going to affect the marriage. So I think that one of the things is just finding, and verbally respecting each other, respecting him and telling him the things that you appreciate about him, and when there is something that you disagree with or whatever, not to make it a disrespectful way of going about dealing with it, but always respect the fact that he's your husband, and he is, if you have children, he's the father of your children, and so the respect, I think, is really important. Mm-hmm. So.
Good. Jay, same question. What is one thing you would say to husbands that they need to know about their wives?
Well, I think the easy concept is to love. What does that love look like? And I guess I would say trying to find the ways to honor and release and encourage your wife to pursue those things that are important to her as well. We're blessed and fortunate to both be in ministry and both be ordained ministers in the Wesleyan Church. And when Sharon came to me, maybe 10 years ago, just with that sense of, I kind of am feeling like God wants me to take this step. I was like, go girl, go God. It was like, try to encourage it and promote it as best you can. So to me, that's kind of a form of love, of saying, I want to support you. I want to encourage you. How can I continue to be a part of being your number one cheerleader kind of thing? So interestingly, Sharon just started a new business. It's kind of fun for her. She said, I'm only going to do this if it's going to be fun. So we talked about it a little bit at the start, but it's just like now she's in, and it's been a really good thing. It's just this side deal that she has going, but it's just kind of a fun thing for her. And it's like, cool, let's see her do it, right? So I guess that loving part is trying to encourage and support and to do the best we can. I haven't always been good at that, I'll be honest. I've had to learn. But I've seen the beauty of it and the value of it when I've been consistent with it. So
yeah, awesome. What are you doing, Sharon?
It's called plunder. It's jewelry.
Okay.
Really fun.
Cool.
Your wife might want some.
Oh, she's pitching me already. I can't believe it.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Good for you. It takes courage to jump into a whole new thing. I mean, you did it 10 years ago, moving toward coordination, and here you're doing it again. So, guys, listen. We could talk for hours. There's so much to know about how to be married and how to be married well. We knew we loved each other. We knew we would. We wanted to spend the rest of our lives together. We had no way of anticipating what that could ever look like. It's almost like you said, people don't know what questions to ask. You don't know what questions to ask when you do, like, even counseling before you get married. You don't know, like, to say to the person, can you please talk about these 3 or 4 things? Because I think these will be issues. You're just blissfully in love and unaware of what the future holds. But maybe one final question. How has marriage, not only, we talk about how sometimes our expectations can cause disappointment when they're not met, or they're flawed, but how has marriage and God's design for it, how has it exceeded your expectations? It's good. It is really good.
I think just knowing that, just having somebody to do life with, knowing that no matter what, you're together and you're walking this together with God. For us, God's very much a part of our journey, and just knowing that we have each other. It's been 35 years, and we're planning on another 35 if God gives us the time, right? So to know that is just, there's a lot of safety and a lot of just rest in that. It's not that there's not going to be struggles, or there's not going to be there's not going to be something that we're going to argue about or disagree about, but that we have each other. I think that is just incredible to be able to know that. So.
I would say, and I'll try to keep this as short as I can. When we first got married, my expectation was, this is just going to be great. Like, everything's going to be perfect. Like, we're not going to have any issues. I just didn't even go there in my mind. And then all of a sudden, personalities and differences and expectations started to come, and I was like, okay, this isn't the way I was thinking it was going to be, which meant this is going to take work. Mm-hmm. So marriage takes work. It just does. So, but part of that work is recognizing we don't have to compete. We can complement. So I saw this years ago. It's kind of like 2 people are competing. They kind of butt heads, and it's like this constant kind of battle. But if you can say, okay, if 2 people bring all of who they are, and they can merge that somehow, and bring a complement the complement of all of our gifts and our strengths. And if we're okay to learn from one another, then, hey, that's way better. So like, for example, where I could be by myself, easily, now I get lonely. Like if, we're not together. Right. And where Sharon was like, we have to be together all the time. She can go do things and go on trips and do this and that. And so it's like we have helped each other, iron sharpen iron, complement one another. I guess that would be something I would say has been the beautiful part of the things that I have grown and been enriched in that come from her, and vice versa.
Cool.
I think we're richer as a result of it. So
Very cool. That's a neat way to put it. Well, guys, thanks so much. This has been great. I appreciate you taking the time to share from your life, your journey, your 35 years together. Congratulations on that. That is an amazing milestone. And we do hope you get 35 more as well. And thanks for sharing a cup of hope with us tonight. This has been awesome.
great. Thank you
Thanks
for
for
having
having
us.
us.
Yeah.
I don't know what your expectations were when you got married, or what your expectations are if you're preparing to get married. But I can assure you, marriage is nothing like what you expected. In a lot of ways, it's tougher. In a lot of ways, it's way better. In a lot of ways, it's quite a bit just different than you ever expected it would be. Thanks, Jay and Sharon, for bringing that to light for us tonight. It's that alone can set us up to find the help we need moving forward through our challenges, and to understand why we're having challenges in the first place. What are your expectations? If you find yourself struggling with in your marriage tonight, or just maybe feeling feelings of disappointment, or is this what it's supposed to be? You're not alone. I love how Jay and Sharon went to a couple that was a number of years ahead of them, an older couple, and just said, is it okay if we kind of just hang out with you guys a little bit? And I feel like we could learn some things, and we're struggling with this or that. It's so brilliant just to go to somebody and say, can we watch, can we talk, and see how you guys have done life and made it work. If you are really struggling tonight, we would encourage you, of course, to reach out to a marriage and family therapist. There are some good ones in our area. If you don't know where to reach out, shoot us an email at care@woodstockwesleyan.org. I will get back to you, and I have some suggestions for you where you can start to reach out. But if you're just like looking for someone to model your life after, I would just encourage you to call somebody a lot older than you. Somebody who's been married a long time, not someone who's been married for 5 years and they seem happy, not someone who's been married for 5 minutes and they're still happy, but someone who's been married for like 30, 40, 50 years, and just learn from them. Find out what they do, what has worked, what they've disagreed about over the years, what their struggles have been, and just listen. They've got tons of stuff to offer. If they are one of those couples you look at and say, man, they've been married a long time, and it seems like they still like each other. Actually, they really love each other. Learn from them. So reach out, find some help. So next week, we're wrapping up A Cup of Hope, and we're going to do that with some good news. And I've invited Tanya Nace from World Hope Canada to join us. She's the executive director, and she is full of good news. So I hope you'll join us. It's going to be a fun week, an upbeat week. And I hope tonight, as we wrap up, that your cup of coffee is very empty, but your cup of hope is very full. See you next time.